Take me back to your time a number of years ago in a large Republican presidential nominating group. What advice would you have for current candidates at this point in the race in terms of how they should proceed, how they should sort of think about standing out in what is still such a large group of candidates, ranging certainly from, some would say, the far left to more moderate?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure my advice would be worth much. I think the truth is that Trump takes all the oxygen out of the room. He did in 2016, and he continues to in 2019. And I think the challenge for the Democrats is how much attention to pay to him and their ability to beat him versus their own message. What I would say is this. I think the reality is this election is neither going to be won by the base of the Democrat Party or the base of the Republican Party. This race is going to be won by people who have toggled in between, who are uncertain. Call them independents, call them persuadable Democrats or persuadable Republicans. And I do think that that group is not going to be persuaded ultimately by an Elizabeth Warren or a Bernie Sanders. I think they will hew more towards the moderate candidates. That's just my assessment. But of course, this is a Democratic primary, and the base drives the primary.
Carly, I wonder if you think, I mean, there's been so much talk about capitalism and this idea that capitalism isn't working and that it's, failing the average American right now. It does seem to be something that's going to be on trial with this election again. I wonder how you see that and whether you think the American concept of capitalism is evolving or even under threat right now.
Well, I do think capitalism is under threat, but I also think that for those of us who understand that free market capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other market system in the world, that we need to be honest about the failings. So we do have incredibly high income inequality. That's just a fact. There are people who are being left behind. It is also a fact that there are many industries and many companies that have taken advantage of consumers, whether it's the opioid crisis, whether it's the financial crisis, whether it's people looking at the situation with the Boeing 737 MAX, whether it's people's concern with Facebook and Amazon market power. The truth is, we all know that power concentrated is power abused, always. And that's true in business, just as it is true in government. And so I think, when the Business Roundtable takes a step and says, of course, CEOs should pay attention to things other than shareholders. They need to pay attention to their communities and their employees and their customers. That's sort of obvious. But the fact that people felt that statement was important to make says that we have a lot of ground to make up, a lot of trust to rebuild. And I think we don't make up that ground or rebuild that trust unless we're honest about the failings of the system, which are real.
It sounds like a call, Carly, for at least on the margin, more government activity, more government intervention. And that comes after a term in which they have been singing the praises of government deregulation. Do you think that changes?
Well, actually, I don't think that means more government regulation necessarily, or a bigger role for government. I think the reason Elizabeth Warren is starting to fade is because people have figured out her plan is for more government every single time, and government has also failed. And there's such obvious examples of it. Power concentrated is power abused, whether that power is concentrated on Wall Street or whether that power is concentrated in Washington, D.C. I think the answer, honestly, is more competition, more power restored to the states. I do think that you have technology companies with way too much power now. And so some degree of regulation, accountability, and transparency for a behemoth like Facebook or Amazon is warranted. But that doesn't mean that you take more things out of the market and place it in the purview of government. It does mean competition works, accountability matters, and transparency is important.
Carly, as you probably are aware, I've been following this desire by Xerox to try to buy HP. It's a battle that's sort of begun and will continue. I know we got to go a ways back, but you did, when you were running HP, of course, buy the compact business, which is part of at least the business that is currently is consisting of some of those units. What are your thoughts about whether those two companies would do well together?
Well, I have to say I'm not all that current, and times have changed a lot. But of course, when I was at HP for 6 years, we believed that our differentiation was our strength, that a systems play was the right play. And clearly, HP is beginning to break itself up around market segments. You look at HP Enterprise, they're still focused on a systems play, but in the enterprise space. Time will tell with the Xerox combination. It is, I think, a reflection of the fact that the markets that used to drive the Xerox core business and used to drive the HP printing business have changed dramatically through technology. And so I think that is going to have to be all about cost and scale and distribution.
Yeah, the revenue growth, of course, as you point out, is really not there. Finally, Carly, tell us about Unlocking Potential. I know it's a nonprofit that you're obviously very much involved with.
Well, Unlocking Potential is really focused on the kind of leadership development and team effectiveness training that I have been doing in the corporate space for many years through Carly Fiorina Enterprises. But in Unlocking Potential, we are focused on those folks in the social sector, in nonprofits specifically, because they're dealing with very difficult problems and don't always get the same investment in human capital. We have some great corporate partners, Mass Mutual, American Express. These corporate partners help fund us to go into communities to work with wonderful nonprofit organizations that are doing great work and that don't always get the investment in capacity building. And it's also given us an opportunity, in the case of Mass Mutual, to train up their employees to become coaches to their nonprofit partners in the community. I think it's a great example of a corporation really being invested in a community and also bringing something valuable, particularly to their millennial employees, who, as we all know, I have a lot of millennials who work for me, and millennials very much want something beyond a paycheck and want to make a difference in a way beyond just being a cog in a corporate wheel. And so we think our program provides a lot of benefit to employees as well.